Welcome to the House of Visor podcast. I'm your host, William, and joining me today will be Derek.
Hello.
And Sean.
Happy Hauntedween.
And on this episode, it's coming out, the closest to the actual holiday of Halloween for episodes. We're going to be discussing Hauntedween, which was released, in 91?
Yeah.
So it is a movie that was made in Kentucky. It was mostly shot in Bowling Green around Western Kentucky University, which is, John Carpenter went there at one point.
Yeah.
In his younger years. And, 1991, that's kind of after slashers had kind of died out a little bit because, most of there was that glut that, about 84, it kind of weaned down a little bit. And it was mostly just the sequels and stuff like that. And you had like the Nightmare on Elm Street and the Child's Play. They got more supernatural and stuff.
And so the director, he went to WKU, but he was living, I think, in San Diego at the time, maybe, or I can't remember now. But anyway, so you could see him like kind of writing this, probably around 85, 86. I don't know for sure. He said he had multiple scripts, but this one seemed like they could actually produce because it was horror.
Yeah.
So, he was writing it probably in the middle of that before it had started dying down.
Yeah.
It made it 89, but then it came out to 91.
Well,
so it was like really came out.
This was like pre-Scream, which is when the resurgence happened.
And what's funny too is, so I also watched like the behind the scenes stuff that they had on the disc. And like in the background, you see the Noid from Domino's, like their mascot from the 90s. And then everybody was wearing RC Cola shirts. So it was, obviously, because Halloween was sponsored by Dr. Pepper, where they had a bunch of Dr. Pepper on hand for the cast and crew and got a bunch of behind the scenes pictures.
RC too is like something I feel like is more like
of a
South.
regional thing.
Yeah, they said RC and Big Red, they had containers and they said they never let it run dry. They came every day, filled it up. They got like $3,000 from like a local grocery store chain that apparently is everywhere now because they did an ad. They did a contest where they said, I listened to some of the commentary too, but they had a contest where you go into the grocery store, write down why you deserve to be in the movie, and then every morning the radio station would read off the responses.
Yeah.
So it was like promotion for the grocery store, and then the person that won, they ended up giving her a speaking role or something.
And two, then in the movie, like listening to the behind the scenes, they said they went to producers and they said, you either need to make an action adventure movie or horror. Mm-hmm. And they said horror was cheaper, so they're going to make that.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, is still the mindset a lot of people went with. That's, why Sam Raimi and Rob Tapert and Bruce Campbell made Evil Dead, was because they were told that horror is an easier sell at the low budget spectrum.
And it's still that today.
And
that behind the scenes documentary real quick too. Apparently, so there's a boat scene when we'll do full spoilers, I guess. So this is, I would recommend purchasing it. If you go to their website and click on the buy link, it doesn't work or it says something like out of stock. I can't remember what it is on their actual website.
Yeah.
But if you go to the website store, and then there's a list of different options, like you can buy it with a shirt or just the movie or something, then it's in stock there for some weird reason. So if it says it's out of stock, click around on their website some, and so you can buy just the disc. That's what we got a copy of.
We can put the link to that in the notes for this.
But the guy that was like on the boat between the two topless girls, he apparently is the one that made the behind the scenes documentary, and he got 3 hours college credit for it because it does very much feel like this is the crew. These are the crew members it takes to make a movie, because it would have like our director sit down and talk about his role. So you could, I'm sure they've showed that years and years at Western Kentucky. Like, here's what they did to make the film. Yeah.
So the basic setup for what this movie is, was it 20 years prior?
Mm-hmm.
You have
every great slasher.
Yeah, you have a young kid who's working the front gate at a haunted house. So he's at the very front taking money as cars come in, and it's $1 per person or whatever. So he's taking the money as they come in, and then the cars go back and they go through the haunted house. And he wants to go into the haunted house, and they tell him he's too young to work in it. And he has this monster mask on. So he ends up going and trying to sneak in, and he sneaks in and finds a younger girl that he saw in the car on the way in. And he chases her back to her room and chases her around, and she ends up getting impaled on something that's on the wall. And then he uses a blade to cut her head off.
They said, too, because of that scene, they could not sell the film in Germany because it was violence against a
child
minor, and that was considered pornographic, too. And I think they said the mask was maybe designed by the effects guy who was from Owensboro. They said his name, but I don't know who he was.
So then,
he shot a film in Owensboro.
So then he leaves the haunted house, and his mom takes him away for 20 years. And then you cut to the present. You have a fraternity who didn't pay their dues, and they need to come up with $3,700. So they decide to have a party to try to recoup the money, and then they also find this old haunted house, and the killer comes in, gives them the keys, and tells them they can use it, and then when they have the haunted house, things go awry. So, that's your basic premise. And there's even a part around a campfire where a character recounts the story of somebody died here this many years ago.
And I think we can just give away the hook of the film. He said he was when he was writing the film, he didn't have the hook in mind. He was trying to write the film, and he thought of the hook. I guess he sold pagers in California, and he sold them to a lot of movie execs and stuff too. That's what he was doing. But so the hook of the film is essentially people go to a haunted house and don't realize what's happening is real. Yeah, and this is the first film that I know of. And this film was brought to me by, the attention was brought to me by Kevin Spear, who I worked with at WLKY. He went to WKU. Yeah. Shortly after this film was put out, or around the time it was put out, a little bit after it was made. But I think this is like a cult classic at WKU and Bowling Green.
But the hook of that's actually cool because, we just got talking about another movie that's written by a more experienced filmmaker, didn't have a hook. And you look at this and it's like, this is cool kind of a hook because you never really, like you said, I can't think of anything that predates us where you thought.
Because since then, what's sad is like this would have been primed for a remake about 10 years ago because since then you've had Hellfest, and
just recently, past like 2 years,
past 3 years.
And then what was the one by the guys who did The Quiet Place?
Haunt.
Yeah.
And then there's been like 4 or 5 other independent mid-tier budget movies.
Too, like this would have fit perfectly kind of into, and he did like the House of Wax remake, all that stuff in the mid-2000s.
You were talking about remakes, like, would this be possible? I forgot because I started Googling years ago when I went over to Kevin's house and Ashley Cecil, who's edited Hazard, and I work with her on projects. Her and I went over his house with our spouses and watched this because he's like, I got to show you this. So this is where I first saw it over. So he was giving like a running commentary because he's like, this person's a professor at the school and this person did this. But I think at the time they were going to try. At the time I started Googling more about it. They did an Indiegogo for a sequel. Yeah. So the original director got on board with somebody else, and they were going to make a sequel. I think they had a $10,000 goal. They made like $385.
Yeah.
So that didn't work out. And there was a big interview about them talking about wanting to do a sequel versus doing a remake. It seemed like they didn't want to do a remake or something. But
it just, you see all this other stuff, and like you have this movie, which I know at this point now we've seen stuff like that. Yeah. But this is kind of like what, to our knowledge, would be the original concept for a lot of this stuff.
I mean, because I was trying to think back. I was like, even like Funhouse, anything with people getting killed didn't happen until after the Funhouse had closed.
Yes,
and they knew it was real. They knew that there were people trying to hurt them.
But this film, so most of the film, we have that set up. Most of it feels like it feels like it doesn't necessarily want to be a horror film because a lot of it is just like a fun college movie. Yeah. That's the bulk of this film, and they're having fun. And that's kind of why I liked it too, because it did seem like, they were just having a good time making
That's what makes it also feel more like the 80s.
Yes, yeah.
Because to me, watching that stuff kind of felt like a National Lampoon's.
Yes.
It's like that, and then you put this in there.
Yeah, but it's like literally the last part of the movie. I think I clocked the time, so kills start happening before that, but the haunted house stuff happens, and some people don't know it's real. I think some people might know at one point, but then the kind of comic relief character, he doesn't realize it's happening, and that's when everybody realizes it's real until an hour and 17 minutes in, and the movie's only an hour and 25 minutes. Like it's the very end of the movie.
Yeah, because I think if you were to remake this today, you would put a lot more of it at the haunt.
Yes, it seems like 20 minutes in, you would start.
So your main characters, the main things you have going on. So you told me like your protagonist you're following. You have Kurt and Mel, which are the couple where Mel thinks that Kurt isn't giving her enough attention, so she's upset about that. And he's like the fraternity president. And
I guess now is a TV anchor.
And then you have Hanks, who is kind of like the jokey, fun guy that gets put in charge of figuring out how to run their party in the haunt to try to make the money.
He's a very vulgar, like Kenneth Parcell kind of goes with that, which I don't know if he's actually from the South. I can't remember on the documentary. I know they said they did some reshoots and they had to have somebody else stand in because he went back up to law school or something.
Because it is one of those things, too, where they tried to go for a regional dialect and accent from the actors, and some of them had it, some of them didn't.
Yeah. They got some actors from, I think, Nashville. I think the female was from the female lead, I guess, the girlfriend of, I guess you would call the lead.
Yeah.
She was from Nashville, and apparently she had a CMT show, a game show and stuff. Like, she was decently big. Then the lead went on to do he did like an episode of X-Files and some other stuff.
So it's one of those things where, so this is definitely like a low budget movie.
But they got people that,
they had people
actually went on to do some stuff or were doing some stuff at the time.
Well, and the other thing that's different is, and I think the thing that makes this way different than today, so back then to make a movie, watching the behind the scenes, they had rented a bunch of, like RE film cameras and professional equipment. Back then, it took a significant amount of resources to make an independent film. Because just watching it, when they were shooting like at the house, like all the lights they had to put up just to light the house. In today's world, you go take, that Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera, the one we're shooting this podcast on, plop it down outside. You don't need those lights.
Well, too, like with the thing with the quality of lighting today, too, as opposed to then,
because now you have those hot ass lights
they were out and they had like a one electrical drop. You know what I mean? But
because now you have battery operated LEDs.
And I think another thing about this film, I believe Kevin told me this. So I was listening to the commentary. They shot it on 16 millimeter, but they rented Zeiss prime lenses because they want the sharpest image. But I think he said they edited it on tape because they knew it would never hit the theaters.
Yeah.
So that's why even the DVD
doesn't
look
quality.
crisp. And I don't think there can ever be a great remaster unless they have those original elements.
If they have all these,
but who's going to pay to do that? Only because this is such a niche film. Like this is this is a good film to watch if you're from Kentucky.
Yeah.
Or
because
I'm not going to recommend it to everybody, but I enjoy this film.
I would say that the transfer quality is about on par with the Amazon Prime versions of what was the Jamie Lee Curtis Prom Night? Was it Prom Night?
Oh, Prom Night 1 was pretty bad.
So the quality of this is comparable to that or better in terms of the visual quality if you watch it today. Like you said, if you go back and rescan all the 16 millimeter negatives and do like a 2K or whatever 4K remaster. I'm not sure what resolution 2K film comes out to, but if you did all that remaster, that's a lot of money.
And two, for this, something to note too, if you watch the 20th anniversary DVD, which again, you can't just get off Amazon. I think it's like, if you go to Amazon, it's like astronomically expensive because people are selling it, but you can go directly to the website. I think the opening sequence, they shot a scene for the house for this version, and then they also took some footage of him running around the house, the haunted house with the girl, and put that in the front. So they actually did some re-editing for this 20th anniversary.
Well, it's funny though when you talk about like Amazon. There's other movies that you go to get, and maybe something like this or more niche movies are like incredibly expensive. Then you find like on eBay or somewhere.
Yeah. You can go directly to his website. He said, "Hey, do you want me to sign it?" He signed it for me and everything.
And what's funny too,
you just got to know where to look. Sometimes.
So I put a couple notes. At one point in their haunted house, there's an inflatable skeleton, and I had that as a kid. We had that exact skeleton. I was like, oh. It's just like one of those goofy things. So that's like a regional thing that was like in grocery stores.
Yes, yeah.
So, and two, watching this movie, it's supposed to be set in October because they have the haunted house. They obviously didn't shoot in October because of all the crickets and cicadas were definitely from the summer.
Yeah. They shot in August. I think.
Because it was still, just being from Kentucky, the temperature, even if it's warm enough on a given day to go swimming in Kentucky, the weather's so inconsistent, the water is definitely not warm enough to not give you baseline hypothermia in October. So, little small things like that, but I'll excuse that. But you point out there is a scene in this movie that is very close to what Cabin in the Woods released 25 years later, or
because they were parodying those
91 versus 2012, where there's a couple of characters that go outside and decide to get naked and do stuff in the woods. And then the girl goes and gets in the water and stuff like that. So it's a very similar scene.
Which there's probably Friday 13th that has that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they were.
But it had the same feel as far as like
an overly lit
background with a bunch of fog thrown through, like just for effect. Like it just film, like you can tell they watched a lot of horror films, but maybe they weren't like all in on making super scary or whatever. They had a good idea, but they also just wanted to have a good time and wanted to make this is more of a comedy mostly, or
it feels more like
and so the movie has a little bit of like your token nudity, but it's just like a little bit in one scene.
This guy, he went on to be a marketing guy, I think pharmaceutical or something, but like he knew what you needed to do to sell it. That was the goal of this. They said, hey, we knew what we had to do to sell this film, what we had to hit. And they made their money back, they said, but I think it cost like $7,000 just to get on DVD. Yeah. But I think they made that back too eventually.
But so like the overall movie, so it's like a pretty standard, horror movie plot. 20 years later, blah, blah, blah. The Eddie Berber comes back and because his mom dies, so he goes back and shows up to the frat from like a point of view shot from his point of view, and is like, oh, I'm a brother of this fraternity, and somehow knows all their handshake and codes or whatever, and gives them the keys. Like, you can use the house. And then they go and they're setting up the haunted house, and the cop's like, do you have a permit or permission? Like, we got the keys. It's like, well, that's really not permission.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, so you have
that dude definitely carries a personality in this film. Like his animation, you know.
Yeah, Hanks, like he is definitely out there, and like you said, this would feel very much at home in a college comedy. Take out the horror, and this is, you know, pretty much what you would expect from a lot of those. But then you have, I'm trying to think all the different elements. Like, you know, you have some interesting kills, like some decent gore and blood. Like, they don't have Tom Savini working on this, but they definitely had stuff that was, you know, watchable, and I'm sure people at the time probably were into it when they watched it on video.
I think this movie's fun enough. Like, it's like, it doesn't blow your mind to go back and watch any of the special effects, but knowing what it is, like, I feel
it's like a cool time capsule. I think of like, hey, somebody like not far in Kentucky, when in an era where took a lot more effort to make a film. Like now, everybody and their mom makes films. You know what I mean? It's just nothing to make a film.
Because going back to like when
I think they said at one point they would have like a crew. I don't know if cast and crew, but like 100 people working on their busiest night. Like, it took a lot of effort to get this film made.
Because watching their behind the scenes thing, they had, you know, actual people doing real jobs that were specifically tasked with one job. And today's world, you just have, you know, like, granted, in our productions, we have a really small crews, but like other people that have way more resources still have somebody pulling quadruple duty.
Yeah, which they said for some of those, some people did, but still they had I mean, they were, some of those were former film students, and they knew, like, hey, we all need to fill these roles. We know the importance of having specific people.
Because on the behind the scenes, they're asking everybody, it's like, so what do you think when this movie's done? Or, like, what are you going to do? And the one guy was like, I just wish it would keep going forever.
Yeah.
Like, there's the one guy who was really nostalgic and getting sad about it ending.
Yeah.
And it's like, that is true when you're working on a project. You're like in the heat of the moment. It's like, you're, you know, even though you got a ton of work and super long hours, you're in the thick of it and you're excited about it. And then you're kind of sad when it ends.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's funny watching this. So something, too, that was interesting was, like, you mentioned it's kind of like a comedy. So as I was watching, I was like, okay, well, how are they going to treat their characters when they actually get to the death? Are they going to dispatch the characters? Because they put a lot more effort into making these characters be people you should care about versus a Friday the 13th. Mm-hmm. It's like, so are they actually going to go and really be brutal to all these lead characters at the end? And the answer is kind of yes and no. Because when you get to the end, so you get to the haunted house, Eddie Berber's come back. He's went and made this last room, the kill room, where he's killing people in real life. And people are getting to it, and they're just watching it and thinking that it's part of the show when somebody gets, you know, hacked up or gets a head cut off or something.
That's the moment where the film like turns a little dark. Yeah. And that's why I think it's like, oh, this is actually cool, because it gives you a different feeling of any other horror film where you're just watching something. These people are cheering it on, not knowing what they're saying. Like, take his head off and everything.
Well, it still kind of feels like a Tropic Thunder too. Just
yes, exactly. You don't know.
You don't know what's real, what's fake, and he has the head. He's like, but I think, like, if you go back and you were to remake this movie now, I think what would almost the vibe, you continue the same vibe they have now, but make it almost like a Dale and Tucker versus Evil. Where it's just
Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
Where it just plays up on it, because they really don't know, and it'd be almost more of playing it from the comedy angle than the horror element, because that makes a really fun scene. Because, like, you're watching somebody you know, and you think they're really being murdered. You're like, and I think that's what's entertaining.
Well, then you have the element of it, which is different than the Friday the 13th or Halloween sequels, in that the Eddie Berber character is actually, like, you know, once he kills people and they're cheering him on, he's excited about it and like celebrating.
Yeah.
So it's like this kind of weird thing. But then you have, you know, like, your main characters, you know, Mel, Kurt, and Hanks are like, well, are they going to die? Because I thought for sure Hanks was going to die, because, like, the kind of funny guy always dies in those movies. And then Mel and
they feel like these guys, you know, that made it, they liked horror films, but they didn't really want to do it because they didn't want to kill these characters that they love. They didn't go far. They didn't go all the way, and I'm happy where they went.
So the thing, like we said, full spoilers. The thing that was interesting to me is, so you have, like, the characters of Kurt and Mel Kurt is getting shocked or electrocuted, and then Mel, he cuts her, he doesn't stab her, but he, like, slits her stomach with, like, a scalpel, and then her wrist. so it's not clear if she lives or whatever. I guess like
based on the tone and the rest of the film, I assume she lives.
The implication is that she's
alive. They never
alive.
actually see her die. So.
So you see her get cut, but then they get her off of she was duct taped up to the wall, so they get her down. And then
they get a flamethrower.
So Hanks come in and takes a flamethrower.
They said that the prop guy or somebody made it, and it was basically just a really big lighter and a can of like hairspray. I guess that's what that gun was. It was like
it's also
something in there.
shades of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yes, Or I mean, honestly, it was an alien. That's what I thought because he was actually in a vent too. That's exactly.
Well, what I thought. I was thinking
that too.
Because it's so ridiculous.
So he just sprays.
I wanted to do a movie set in the real world with Hanks as an older guy. And that's how that movie ends with him with a flamethrower from Hauntedween.
So it's just kind of like 20 years after the fact, he's still got that flamethrower and he kicks a door in.
Yeah, minor big spoilers for a recent Tarantino film.
Yeah. Well, we don't really spoil exactly what happens, but I mean, that element, so you have the flamethrowers, like, oh, this is kind of cool. And then when they actually use it against, Chekhov's flamethrower, they use it against Eddie Berber. And so you have that element. And then, like the kills too, you have a guy get his head knocked off with a baseball bat,
which all the kids are like, yay! Like, who would think that was a real effect? That's what I love about that scene too, because it's like that would be the most impressive haunted house effect of all time because the guy was just talking.
Yeah. Well, that's why I just go back to Tropic Thunder when he steps on the landmine, and then he's like, I like that because like they don't know, and they're
Well, then Ben Stiller's character was being dunked, and he's like, cut, because he's being like tortured and waterboarded. But yeah, I mean, like the overall setup for this movie is fun, and then it definitely it has a montage. It has like the montage when they're setting up the haunted house.
Apparently, when the guy's running from the bees, that's the director. He's in the film several times. During RC Call, but he really got attacked by bees, and they were rolling, and so they just decided to shoot. Yeah.
So here's the thing, though. We made a movie in what was the county? Breckinridge County, Kentucky. There was wasps. There were wasps. So we encountered some problems with
the size of small people.
We didn't get footage of that though.
Yeah, but
it's been good.
but like so you have the haunts, and then you have the part where Hanks goes in and frees our lead characters of Mel and Kurt, and then Kurt goes after him with a shotgun, and then one-shots the van and blows it up.
Yeah, it must have been covered in gunpowder and gasoline.
Because in the real world, they had, like, they said the equivalent to 3 sticks of dynamite in it, and it had gasoline and everything, and then gutted the entire part of it so the top would blow off.
Yeah.
So not super realistic there, but
entertaining, sometimes you go for entertainment over realism.
So that's
what movies are.
The other thing that's interesting to do is to view this movie through the lens of 2019. So there's some stuff in there. It's like, well, were they kind of fat shaming the one girl? Because the guy's like, I want to go home with her if I win this drinking game. And it shows like the beer goggles. She looks thinner.
Yeah, but he likes her the whole time in the movie, right?
But like she is popular with the guys. It's just like there's some stuff in there. It's like, so is that intentional? It's like, well, was it just to show that he's drunk? Or was it to try to make it a point that it's only that he's drunk that he would say
Either
that?
way, I think as far as all that stuff goes, this does not have many offenders at all compared to even some,
pretty. Oh no! I mean, when you compare this to Animal
Monster
House,
Squad, you know what I mean? Monster Squad's
so the other thing,
I've been like kind of clear about showing my daughter that just because like some stuff in that.
Like so, other things are funny, and they're having like the big frat party to try to save the frat. There's some girls that come up, and he's like, "Are all of you at least 18?"
Yeah,
and they like dug down.
Underage women.
Yes. Well, come on in. It's $3 or $5 or whatever. And it's like, well, to be fair, I remember going to plenty of parties where people came in and nobody really cared when everybody was 21. I don't know. Once there were people there who were 21 or older, people did say, "Oh, there's someone here under 18. I'm out because the cops show up. I'm getting a ticket."
They dip.
And they're trying to make money on this house. There was no ill intent in this film.
It didn't show anything happen. Like, but then at the haunted house,
it's a pretty sweet film. Like it all, it's like a pretty like.
At the haunted house, it did seem like the guys were looking forward to touching girls' butts and boobs through that one hand wall.
I mean, who wouldn't be?
Yeah, I mean, being realistic at the time.
Well, to be fair, they touch Hank's butt, and he's like playing around with it and stuff.
Yeah.
So
apparently, they were talking in the commentary. They talk about somebody that does get groped, but it was whoever they were dating at the time or something. They were like. They got groped, but it was by their boyfriend or whoever.
Yeah, so it's like one of those things where it's like, it seems like an innocent enough
sex,
intent.
Small, like slight sex comedy. But
it is, but it feels like I said to me. It just feels like the National Lampoons or a little bit of Porky.
Oh, like I said, if you compare this to Animal House, there's not somebody sleeping with a 15-year-old.
No, Animal House got way worse.
There's not that type of stuff. So,
but I could almost see this kind of to me has just the vibe of like a Caddyshack, just that type of writing, because they probably drew a lot of inspiration from that stuff.
And it does feel like they wanted to make that more than a slasher.
Yeah,
which is fine because it helps it stand out.
That's what makes it stand out, and that's what gives it. This is like you said, it's not something to recommend to everybody because I think being in Kentucky, you have a lot more ties to it. But it is fun enough to watch. There's other stuff that people like a lot more that I would much rather watch this.
Yeah, I could see if we lived in Bowling Green, this would be a film. We'd be like, oh, we got to watch, because that's what Kevin and Ashley watching. They're like, oh, that's this because they're on campus. You know what I mean? There's so many. I think they call it Hilltop University is what they call it, which is the Hilltoppers. That's their. So it's if you lived around the area, I'm sure this film. But I wonder how this will age. One. It'll become more of a time capsule, but two, I'm sure plenty of people are making a lot of films around there. You know what I mean? This was probably the only film made around there. Well, because that era, it was a horror film.
When you're the first, or you're the major one that had a lot of other ties to it, people of a certain age will always have an affinity for it, regardless of what.
Yeah, for sure. But if there's some other little indie film that really hits something. Soon, then in 10 years,
it'd be a little bit different.
This might get overshadowed by new college students or something. But I could definitely see why this is a huge thing. Because there was something at U of L that was like this in the 90s. We definitely would have watched that.
Well, and two, I think a difference is, I know, not to make it too regionally based, people from Kentucky, but
that's what this film is. This is why you would come to this film.
In Louisville, there are a lot of people that are argue back and forth about who is the first worthwhile indie film, and. I don't want to throw shade on stuff, but I don't think we've really had one yet. I mean, there's been stuff that's shot here that was from out of town. I don't know. There's been stuff, but nothing's really put on the map. Because, you have movies. I'm trying to think of a movie that happens in a city that not is known for.
Are you talking about a film that originated here or something was it Seabiscuit shot here?
Yeah. Well, I'm just trying to
Are you talking about something like that or Elizabethtown or all that stuff? Or are you talking about homegrown, made here?
Homegrown. Well, when Robert Rodriguez shot his stuff in Austin, he made that a big deal. I don't know that we've had anything here that's done that yet.
What was the Jason Crow zombie film?
Maybe
Bad Moon.
Yeah, Dead Moon Rising. Yeah, that was a big deal at the time.
Well, I remember Seabiscuit being a big deal too.
That's what I was thinking.
Well, I'm just saying the out of town movies that shoot stuff here, I don't really count that because they do that everywhere.
But then you have
the show Justified barely shot anything in the state of Kentucky despite being set here.
Well, you have what is it? The Return of the Living Dead is in Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah, didn't shoot anything.
But they didn't shoot anything here. Use anything.
Stripes shot here.
Yeah.
I mean, but then you have more recent stuff like the movie Julia's in, One Must Fall. I think whenever that does come out, that could expand beyond a regional thing because it is a legit enough movie because you're not even talking about the quality of it, just the audio and visual parts of it. They stand up so people can watch it on Netflix and not be like, ooh.
I mean, there's but that's too. I mean, if you're going. That Archie Borders, he shot some films here too. You know what I mean? That were set in Louisville. I went to some premieres of those. So, and those are one is on Barstow Road a ton. It's set in the 90s, but it was shot say maybe early 2000s, I think. But there's they go to Twig and Leaf. Yeah. They go all over the place.
Well, one point was just you have some movies that,
but none of those are going to break out too much further
than here.
Than
well,
here.
I mean, too, though, with Hauntedween, obviously it wasn't a huge break. I mean, if they did obviously make their money back, because that was also back in the heyday of Blockbuster and the rental stores, so you could probably sell a certain thousand number of copies, just it's a new movie, and then it's a guaranteed floor for sales, and there probably was some amount of that going on, I'm sure, and.
And then, at the end of the film, I don't know if you watched it all the way, it says, coming soon, Hauntedween 2, and then somebody says, oh, there's another room. But yeah, and you don't have that even with One Must Fall. It's not the only game in town. You know what I mean? It's not oh, they're shooting a movie here and it's made here. That happens. There's different levels of it, but that happens all the time.
Like you said,
shot a film here.
Well, everybody now can make a movie.
Yeah. Well, like we said, the difference is and part of it too. It's not putting people down or putting their projects down. It's just today's world. The camera is this the C200 or 100?
100.
So the C100, when it came out, 2013, 2012. The quality you got with that was unparalleled compared to what you got on a sub $10,000 level 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Because you watch stuff, like not to go super camera nerd, but like the Canon XL1, which is like the big deal, like DV camera. The quality is crap compared to today. That does not hold up.
Because it's standard definition.
Standard definition, DV tape, there's just a lot of stuff that doesn't hold up. So to make a movie in the 90s, you legit had to shoot on film.
Yeah.
If you shot on video, it looked like video.
It looked bad.
I mean, there's some of them that were like the higher end of that, but it really took until like the past 10 years for the quality of cameras you can buy for $5,000 or less to catch up to be comparable to what you see on TV. So I think a lot of times now it's really hard to say an independent movie in the past 10 years really put a place on the map.
Well, and two, there's just so there's just so many people making stuff, and there's just so much stuff out there. Like
there's so much.
You're not going to go to Blockbuster and say, "Hey, I heard this film was shot like a couple." People are going to Netflix. They might look at it, but they're like, "There's so many things on Netflix people want to watch now, or any service. They can't keep up with it." Back then, they were starved for it.
Yeah, and now too, though, like you're competing with just literally YouTube, just whatever people put on there. And then you have Amazon, and there's so many more options now that, like you said, like you're not just going to go to, you got Redbox.
Because Netflix, what the CEO of Netflix has said is our competition isn't just Amazon Prime or HBO. Our competition is video games, podcasts, YouTube, live sporting events. Like there's so much entertainment you can access from your phone now.
Because like now, like I come home sometimes, I'll just put on instead of turning my TVs on, I'll just have a podcast on. Just when I'm doing stuff around the house, and I can take that with me from room to room when I'm whatever I'm playing it on, as opposed to if it's TV, you gotta be in.
Yeah, so I think the point was like with Hauntedween from that era, if you made a movie in a town that wasn't a known like film town or place, it was a big deal to the locals for sure, because not everybody back then, it required I don't know what the budget for Hauntedween was, but to get all that equipment and all that crew, there's no way you made that for under.
And also,
for what you could accomplish today for $50,000, there's no way you could do that in 1990.
Well, it just seemed like too though that was much more. I feel like when movies get made now, they're not as much of a production because like I don't know if you'd have RC get involved and have a local grocery chain do.
Again, there's so many other people making films that they don't want to support 50 films a year.
I think too though now it's kind of like brands are. There's nothing wrong.
They're safe,
but they're safe because back then you might make this movie. And then who knows if anybody's ever actually going to see it or not? You know what I'm saying? But now it's like
back in the day you had Pizza Hut ads with Freddy Krueger and stuff. And I think national brands now very much make sure that the things they use to advertise are in alignment with their target market and there's nothing objectionable.
I don't think you'd see Freddy Krueger.
Which is way more boring.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah. I would like seeing Freddy Krueger sling some
So, I mean, here's the thing. Like, there are movies, like you said, like Dr. Pepper, when Halloween was being made, gave them like a deal and had like on-set Dr. Pepper and took behind-the-scenes pictures. I think today they would pre-screen stuff a lot more because even Halloween back then, like, it shows some breast and there's a lot of kills in it. And
but see, now,
I don't know about that.
But see, now they're not afraid to because it's a franchise. But you wouldn't go maybe get involved with them, something that's more of like.
Because people consider Psycho to be.
the nudity's a big deal. Like,
well, I'm just saying
hey, free the nipple, William.
The subject. So I'm just saying the subject matter in movies will probably make people be a little bit more cautious today.
Yeah.
Because today, like, not being, everybody's offended, but there are a lot of people that are a lot more critical of things now and a lot more thoughtful when they talk about it.
But you have to know also, too, all these companies are not, they don't care about who they're offending or what they're doing. They're caring about
money.
What side they're on that's gonna make them the most money. You know what I mean? Like that's all it is.
But that's all it is.
Boobs aren't gonna get anybody. Yeah. Most people are fine with it. It's if it's something that crosses the line this way, or if it's offensive because it's
Another movie this kind of fills in the same wheelhouse is just being jokey is kind of like Piranha a little bit because it's now that one's a little bit more or less fratty, but. Like that movie, especially I haven't seen the original, but the remake is more
3D. Right?
Yeah, it's more comedy than is
the one with Ving Rhames and Scott. And, I mean, but like,
just imagine getting a remake of this, but with a cast like that.
Yeah.
So like when you like so.
But the thing about remaking this though, I feel like it is such a personal. It's like remaking Clerks. Like that's a personal thing to him. Or when they try to remake Space for the American audience. Like this almost feels like this belongs to Bowling Green.
Yeah.
So I almost feel like it would have to be, if they were actually to a sequel, I feel like you could go out a little bit, but if they remade this, I almost feel like it would have to either be Bowling Green or even another little.
No, it was
city
like
in
what was the
Kentucky.
city? It was like Rube something.
Regaz, Kentucky, or something.
Yeah, like a fictional town.
Yeah.
I mean, like.
But everybody likes picking Hazard, Kentucky, because the name's cool. Yeah. There's other stuff that's been not just us, but other towns.
Who did it?
There's other. I don't know. I've just heard other people.
There's what was that other Hazard thing?
Oh, Dukes of Hazzard. But
Yeah,
that wasn't in
yeah,
Kentucky though. That was in Hazard,
But still,
somewhere else.
Yeah.
There was another Hazard.
But
thing.
there's somewhere else that's been Hazard, even recently in something we looked up. We're talking about because there's reference in Hazard, Kentucky.
Because it's a cool name for a town.
It's a cool name.
But yeah, I mean, well, I think too, sometimes when you watch movies and they keep name checking the name of the city they're in, it's a little bit like, who cares? It's like locals get excited when they hear somebody talk about the name of the city when that movie screens in the city.
Yeah, because it's exciting.
But for the rest, I mean, everything is shot in LA or Atlanta because Atlanta doubles as so many places. And like people don't watch Black Panther and be like, oh, that's actually Atlanta. When they're in
that's
Wakanda
different though
whatever.
because Atlanta gets so many things made in where it's like when you're in a smaller place it doesn't get
But
that.
the point is, this movie, has the feeling is I'm sure it was a big deal to the people in Bowling Green when it came out, especially college students, because WKU did, they do have a communication program or audiovisual.
They got a film.
Communication film program that people are aware of, and that like I said, John Carpenter.
That's
I think
where most a lot of people Ashley went to WKU for that and for the broadcast stuff, and then didn't Jake took some of that, and of course Kevin Spear he took that.
So it's just one of those like kind of local touch points of people went there to learn about communications and broadcast and film and stuff. So it's just one of those things where the movie has the feeling of like, oh, this was important to people at a time and a place.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of movies that they're not really tied to anywhere specific so they don't really feel like anybody really has ownership of it.
And I think this having such a big cast as well, like it feels like a community-made movie. As far as like instead of being a film with like two people in the woods. There's not a celebration of that. That's not there's no celebration of that.
Well, because ultimately this is not giving them a knock. Like so, Troll 2 that we did recently.
Yeah.
Troll 2 didn't really feel connected to any place. It was Nilbog, so goblins spelled backwards. But I feel like if they had said it just in a real place, there'd been a lot more local love for that project. As is, they do wherever they shot the town. They put up the street sign of Nilbog and all that, and kind of erased any identity just to have that gag of it's goblins spelled backwards.
Well, real quick, I was looking just films filmed in Kentucky, and Demolition Man had a scene filmed in Kentucky.
Yeah, I'm not talking about.
No, it's just funny. I did not know that,
because there was some movie that had Dylan McDermott. I think the Clove Hitch Killer or something that shot stuff here. I saw their truck one day set up around Tyler Park, so the Barstow Road area.
They had like Goldfinger films.
Well, they had like all their cameras like on a gimbal mounted.
Yeah,
the
now
back
there's
of
a
truck.
lot of stuff shot here.
Yeah.
Because we had those film incentives
too. Forgot about that.
We had the film incentives because there was a few movies that shot here. There's one that you worked on that was at the old mall.
That's still not out yet.
Who's the cinematographer on that? Cundy, wasn't it Dean Cundy?
Yeah, Dean Cundy.
She's done a bunch of classic
Halloween
stuff.
Connection.
So there's been movies like that shoot places, but I think when it's a movie about a place, well, no, it's a fictional town. It's very clearly Bowling Green, and it's like the Hilltop College.
And it had the school involved, it's just,
So the type of thing I don't know that you would get happening as often today.
No.
Yeah, so like in terms of giving this movie a score, it's kind of hard to do because there's a lot of stuff you grade on a curve or you don't. Like
I have to grade this one on a curve because I don't know. I have too much I just enjoy it too much on it. Like I'm not going to recommend this to most people being like, hey, because most of the older horror films that I recommend are if they somehow push a boundary or just something style, I don't know. There's a lot of factors for those, but sometimes that is historically significant. And I think if you're in Kentucky, this is historically significant if you're into horror, So for me, this is like a must watch if you're in Kentucky and you're a horror fan. And enjoyment levels, I like it well enough. I give it like a 7 or 8 out of 10.
Yeah, that's about
for this.
Because I'd rather watch something like this where it's more earnest than kind of a cash grab sequel of a franchise that's not really fun. Like I'd rather watch this over Jason Takes Manhattan or a lot of those sequels or like Freddy's Dead or whatever. Like I'd rather watch this than that.
Because at least this one brought something new to the table.
I just feel like I wish this will get screened here, okay? Maybe we should try to get some screenings started, like every now and then, every Halloween or something. Just have a screening every now and then. This film should be a little bit more celebrated, even here in Louisville, I think.
Because I think that Red Letter Media has mentioned on one of their lists. So it's definitely a movie that and like I said, this isn't a slam, but like Troll 2, you can kind of enjoy it in that way, even if you're not a fan of that. If it doesn't hold up to modern entertainment value for like a 17-year-old, there is the element of it's goofy enough that it's fun just to watch and have enjoyment from it. In a way where it's like you're enjoying, like you may not be enjoying it straight face and actually scared for them, but you're enjoying it and having fun with it.
Yeah. And that was the intent of it. That seems like the tone of this movie.
Yeah, because I don't think
you weren't not Troll 2 of like we don't know what they were going for.
Yeah. Or
they knew what they were going for, and I think they succeeded.
Like
with
if you enjoy something like Troll 2, you need to sit there and watch through that. There's no reason why.
And a movie that watching this movie, it kind of made.
We're bringing up Troll 2 because we just covered it.
A movie that I felt was kind of tonally similar, that if you really love that movie, this movie's worth to watch, which I mentioned earlier, is The Funhouse, the Tobe Hooper film.
Yeah, for sure.
So that movie, higher production value and all that stuff, and it's Tobe Hooper who made Texas Chainsaw Massacre and arguably Poltergeist, however you believe, between him and Spielberg. But so this movie, I think if you really enjoyed that, this is in a similar wheelhouse, just a lower budget level and like a more earnest attempt from first-time filmmakers or at least first-time feature filmmakers. And it's something that is in that vein, but it very much reminded me of my childhood, of the Domino's Pizza and the RC Cola and the clothes and the air. It reminded me of like when I was really little. Like when we used to go to the lake with my parents, this reminded me of those towns.
I know. Yeah, that's what I like. So, and apparently he got offered to direct a bunch of porn after this.
Oh.
He said several offers. He's like, I could have probably made millions. He's like, but I just decided not to do it.
And now that's a market that's so flooded. There's so many people doing that.
So, all right. Well, this is one I've been wanting to cover since watching it, basically, since we started our podcast, basically, only because I just want more heat on this film, because it is good enough. It's not like just...
For the stuff that people hold up...
I'm not only like it because it was shot in Bowling Green, because there's a lot of films shot in Kentucky at this point, horror films,
But out of all the movies that people hold up over time...
exactly.
This one also hasn't been more recognized. Because what was it? Is it the Silent? Which one is one that has like Garbage Day and the guy gets shot with the gun?
Silent Night, Deadly Night, or
like
something?
It's the sequel.
And this is also a holiday movie. It's
it's Halloween. Hauntedween. They even have like a.
Is it set on Halloween?
Because it's in October, so they're going to have a haunt, and then it even has like the theme song.
I figure, but I don't know, for some weird reason they were like, we're just making making it whenever. But I did think I remember.
And then they have like one of the most like cheese-tastic 90s theme songs. It's a banger. I want to try to remix it.
There's a music video on the DVD as well.
Yeah, So it's a movie that's a kind of a time capsule, especially for this region. It's worth looking into, and it's kind of surprising there aren't more people talking about it. It's probably because it's not as widely available. If this was on Amazon Prime, or probably not Netflix, but Amazon Prime, which they could do if they wanted. I'm not like maybe they will at some point. Then they could probably get a lot more recognition.
This is the first time until we talked about it for the podcast.
So Shudder, get in contact with them and restore it. Yeah, I mean,
have Joe Bob do it.
Yeah, Joe Bob. This would be a perfect Joe Bob movie.
Yeah, he'd fit right in. Yeah, he'd probably love this cast and everything.
Yeah, so Joe Bob should do this movie.
Yeah.
Somebody should bring that to him. I mean, I'm sure it's crossed his desk at some point.
Yeah,
but
I'm sure he's probably seen it.
So I guess I'll wrap up our discussion of Hauntedween. If you're listening I'm saying that weird. If you're listening via iTunes or whatever you listen to podcasts, a review is something we always appreciate getting. And you can find all the stuff we're doing on social media. It's a House by Video Store. You can find our website at hbtvs.com. Like I said, we have a short film out for the month of October. We made it for a contest. It had to be one take, under 3 minutes, and have the word boo. So you can check that out and see what we did for that.
Let us know what you're watching this Halloween.
Yeah, like let us know
recommendations.
If you have a Halloween Day movie you want to watch and it's not Halloween 1978 or something like Trick or Treat, like an off the beaten path Halloween pick. Let us know in the comments. Yeah. So always enjoy seeing that. Always email us at podcast@housebyvideostore.com. And if you find us specifically on social media, you can find me on Instagram at the William Caps.
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at CapsDerek.
And I'm at Blevin Sean. And thanks again, Kevin Spear, for showing me this film.
Yes, and that'll wrap up this. That'll
wrap this episode. See you later.
Bye.
Yeah.